right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. The the topic of I'm sharing what I have submitted for the presentation. My research topic is impact of using parallel text strategy on teaching reading to intermediate 2-level students at Birzeit University. Now, the purpose of this study is to examine the impact of using a parallel text strategy, English and Arabic, on intermediate 2-level students' reading skills. It's an attempt to examine a teaching method that might support our students' proficiency and to provide a scaffolding tool for our students, especially those who have weaknesses in their English as a second language learning. Now, the study tried to answer 3 major questions. Number 1, does the parallel text provide a stronger support to students' reading comprehension? Will they benefit more from using a parallel text in improving their sentence structure awareness? Will it enhance their retention of vocabulary as they move into their learning of English as a foreign language? The sample for this study were 38 students in 2 different sections. The first section was my controlled group, and the second section was the experimental group in which the parallel text was used. Students in both sections were from different university faculty and different year levels. One reading passage was selected from the reading books to conduct this this study. The pre and post tests were employed to assess the students' language skills. The pre and post tests were divided into 3 sections: comprehension, reading comprehension, vocabulary, and sentence structure. The pre-test was given to the students prior to our lesson on our reading lesson. The reading lesson on the target for the controlled group started with the pre-reading activities, activating prior knowledge as a whole group, discussing the title, pictures, theme, etc., etc. And key vocabulary words. The discussion within the class was in English only. No translation of key terms in Arabic were provided to the students. After that, the class was divided into groups of 4. The students were directed to read the text together, discuss it, and answer a worksheet. They were using an English-only text. As the students were working together, I was taking notes and observing their interaction. I was especially focusing on the use of L1 and L2 as they were doing their work. And the same procedure was followed with my experimental group, except that when we were having a whole group discussion and with the reading, pre-reading activities, key vocabulary terms were translated and if any student answered a question with their first language, it was not a problem. 6 weeks later, after the post-test was given to the students, to both groups. Both tests were scored, and the results were compared. As in this table shows the comparison between the scores of the students of both groups, the experimental and the controlled group, on their post tests. Now, there were higher scores. Both groups had higher scores in their post tests. As for my experimental group, there was a significant increase in their vocabulary by 13% compared to their pre-test, 10% to the sentence structure, and 4% in their reading comprehension. By examining the increase of scores for my experimental group, we can conclude that using parallel text strategy variable may have contributed to this gain. However, if we compare the same increase in scores to the increase of the controlled group in their post-test, it might seem that the parallel text was not as effective. So this has posed a challenging questions, which is, to what extent can we attribute the gains of my experimental group to parallel text? Well, it is very hard to give a definite answer to this question. But what is certain is that the use of L1 parallel text as a form of the use of parallel text as a form of L1 use in a classroom did not reveal a negative impact on the participants' learning. This conclusion is aligned with the advocates of L1 use in L2 learning classrooms, who perceive the judicious use of L1 in L2 learning as a scaffold to enhance the students' learning. Furthermore, if we consider the parallel text as one form of L1 use in a classroom, other forms of L1 use were evident during the teamwork of my students in the controlled group. Students were discussing the text using their first language. They were translating, they were using Arabic, they were even taking annotations in their first language. So as a English as a foreign language instructor, I believe that it is very hard, if it's not impossible, to eliminate the use of L1 in L2 learning, especially when the majority of students share the first language, the same first language. Therefore, I recommend that more experimental research could be conducted, research on the impact of parallel text with larger numbers of participants and various levels of English as a foreign language learners. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. Any questions?